Stand courageous. It's your hour. Your voice. I'm Keith Williams.
All things are possible to them that believe. God has already given you the power to get what you need. So be strong. Be courageous.
From the heart of the city, rising strong each day, we lift our voices up and won't be turned away. Truth in every story, hope in every line, walking boldly forward, your journey, your time, stand.
Lift every voice and sing.
Hey, look, watch the chat. They'll tell you when they're going live.
Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Loud as the
Good evening. Good evening. Hello, Radio Land. You are listening live to the Courageous Hour. This is one of your co-hosts, Laura Sigmund. So excited and happy to be here with you this evening. Guys, for the month of August, the team and I, we've decided that we want to hear from different generations. And this evening, we have a combination of millennials and Gen Zs. And specifically, we want to hear their voice about what concerns them. You know, I'm just overwhelmed with the responses I've seen since our election day last Tuesday with, you know, what we saw and how things flipped. And there's a reason for that. So beyond even the political, I've had some conversations about, you know, social issues and humanity conversations. You know, I'm a Gen Xer, so I'm a different generation. I perceive and see things based on my lived and life experience. What about you, right? So the number in the studio is 313-837-1340. Again, the number 313-837-1340. So I am going to ask if Caleb could help moderate and facilitate our phone call today, give an introduction, and then ask each person that's on the line to say their generational ID, their name, and then we will begin our discussion. Caleb, can you do that? You might still be muted because I don't hear anything.
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
We can't hear you, so you're live. Go ahead. Your name, your generational ID, and then pass it on and ask the others.
All right, so I'm Caleb Brown, millennial. Maya?
Hi, I'm Finch, and I'm part of Gen Z.
Hey everyone, I'm Ayo and I am a millennial.
Hi, I'm Sydney. I'm a millennial.
And we've got Miss Linda on, I see.
Yes, Miss Linda is here, and I'm a baby boomer.
Thank you.
Wait a minute, who consorts with millennials?
Thank you, Linda, for jumping on. So let it rip, guys.
We have Miss Dorma as well.
Miss Dorma is on. Okay, Miss Dorma.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Caleb, Dr. Caleb, for introducing me. Good evening, Maya. Dewan Bland will be joining us about 6:40 or 6:45. He's the gentleman from CFL who is in charge of Moses and the voting, and he's got a lot, I think, that will be of a great help. So I am ready, willing, able, available, and I'm listening.
All right. You didn't give us your generational ID, but that's okay.
My generational ID is that in what's today? Today is the August the 12th. In exactly 13 days, my generational ID will change to 69. I was born in 1957 and I look good.
Which I think would put you in the baby boomer category, if I'm not mistaken. Linda have to help me with that. But
okay, I'll take that.
Yeah. Yep. So look, we've got a very robust group of people, mostly millennials, but we've got one Gen Zer on here, and we want to know, what are the issues that concern you? What are you guys talking about in your groups and your friends? What concerns you the most? Caleb, kick it off.
Well, I created like a whole thing, but what concerns me the most is probably the realization that we are in a boiling pot and everyone is watching the pot boil but doing nothing about it.
Now, Linda, you know you got to jump in on that. What exactly is a boiling pot? And what do you mean doing nothing about it? On what point exactly?
Um, let's say boiling pot. We're seeing the AI and the data centers taking over lands when people are voting against it on their local areas. We're seeing climate crisis in real time from people. We're also looking at, I have millennial concerns, which also might be some of the baby boomer concerns. We can go with financial well-being, consumer debt, savings and retirement. And then we have the housing crisis, student loan crisis, and climate crisis.
That might be every last person on this call, regardless of their generational ID, right?
And then that's probably leading us into the vibe session adjustment, which is a lack of future preparedness because everyone's jamming out. And I think those all are the points that I have, but they're all encapsulating in a circle.
Linda, I'm driving. I need you to jump in and facilitate, help moderate this call, because I see somebody's square just lit up. Please comment.
Yes, this is Io. I was going to sort of ditto some of those things and add to it. So, I am on the younger end of millennials, but we know that we are really everywhere from like almost 50 to 30. And so we're talking about education. I've already heard retirement. We're talking about civic engagement or lack of civic engagement. We're also talking about arts, culture, expression, pollution. In addition to data centers, I think quality of life is the best way to sum it all up. I think all of these things fit into quality of life. And increasingly, it feels like the way that we maybe perceive that to happen, you do all the things, get your education, whether that's trade or academic or what have you. And then you reach a point where you then begin to do the work and secure the funds. And then quality of life sort of comes along with that. And that doesn't seem to be as much of a given as I think we maybe were raised to believe it to be. And so I think we are all, at least in my friendship circles, sort of navigating and understanding that.
I find you interesting because some of the things that you all are saying are almost the exact same things that we said when I was younger than you. Okay, that's the conversation that the older boomers, and yes, Dorma, you're a younger boomer, but as a middle of the range boomer, some of those same things that you're talking about. The friends who came out after me, they couldn't get jobs in education. Okay, they couldn't get teaching jobs. So their teaching degrees kind of went to waste for a year because there were none. I was told when I graduated not to even apply in Detroit, which is how I ended up in Ohio, because they were all on strike. We were challenging the civil rights era and wondering if we also would ever get a job to get started. So, yes, I think to a certain extent, you all may have been raised to say, hey, get your education and this won't happen to you. And your grandparents know it happened to them.
So it sounds like the more things change, the more they've stayed the
Staying
same.
the same. Because as we look, this is the 61st year of the Voting Rights Act. And where are we?
We're still waiting.
Well, actually, we're reversing.
Yeah, we're going backwards.
Backwards.
Yes, we are, which was the main thing I voted on the presidential election for last time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to figure out what tangibles we are going to have going into the midterms.
Give us a little bit more. Give us a little bit more clarity. So you voted with the intention of what?
They were going to do some more for the Voting Rights Act to ensure that everyone was going to have a right to vote. And now, if you see that the SAVE Act is coming out and people are afraid that they're going to take the right to vote from women. So we're not, like we said, we're going backwards in a way. We already had other rights taken away from women. And that adding onto it, if they do the name change dilemma, which is in their legislation, seems like that's just more of regression.
So the question I would pose to all of you, and the rest of you who haven't spoken up
I'm
yet,
on a radio show. I didn't hear you.
The rest of you who haven't spoken up yet, I see you, Calandra. Well, see being an operative word here. Where do you go from here? Or what do you want to see happen? What do you think?
I'm just trying to play catch up. I got to kind of get an understanding.
Okay. Just listen. We're talking about, what are your issues?
We have a caller on the line, Linda.
Okay.
Let's go to our caller. Caller, please. Caller, can you hear us? Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead. We can hear you.
Dewan, is that you?
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I can hear you.
Dewan, is that
Hey,
you?
how's it going this evening, everyone?
Going well.
This
Hi.
is Dewan Bland from Moses. I was asked to join to talk about voter engagement and just the importance of engaging the community.
Thank you for calling.
I don't know if I'm supposed to be hearing somebody else or not.
Yes. Tell us what is on your mind. This is Dorma. Hi. Can you hear us at all?
Oh, yeah, no, I'm just calling to and encourage people about, this midterm election that we're in. And I know, the midterm kind of skips by people's agenda, but it's a very important moment for us. We got the entirety of the state governance structure on the ballot. We have U.S. legislator seats on the ballot. We have the act of opening up and revising the Mexican Constitution on the ballot. So I think it's a very important election. But what I would say beyond that is that the communities that we live in are the results of just day-to-day decisions that people make, and the elections are opportunity to actually put the people who make those decisions in office. So I would encourage people to do some deep research about what's on this ballot. I would also encourage people to, use the leverage that you have and the social cachet that you have to encourage people who may not participate in voting to go out and vote this year, knowing that, it doesn't end in November, but this is a very important time. So I'll just pause right there.
Okay. This
Go ahead, Linda.
What I was going to say is that's good, but what I'm getting from some of us here, and I did not mean to put my face on, so sorry, is that because of the last votes taken, some of you seem to be wondering, what is the point? Am I getting
Exactly.
that feeling?
No.
Yeah. Is that what I'm feeling?
Huh? No. I think there just needs to be a concrete strategy on what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was gonna say to start this whole thing, and I was gonna ask one of you ladies, I know you're gonna finish it. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Right. So that's where we are on the whole situation of, I think, our country. And we're looking at a lot of things transpiring around us in a lot of different places. So I would ask, think of a future dystopian movie, and do you see any similarities in our current state?
Idiocracy.
Okay, all right, that's one right there. And then I will also ask, what are your candidates going to bring you as intangibles? So that's how I want to preface this whole politic part. What's going on there? So not that we don't see an ending, it's just what is the end goal? What are we collectively, what are we all agreeing to do? And where do we want our power to be, like the gentleman said before? We're not a monolith, as Americans. So we all have different ideas, but what are the things we want to actually believe in as a country? And I think we need to focus on those and connect the things that everyone agrees on.
Not necessarily say the candidate, but say the things, I think, Caleb, right? You want them to say publicly what they want. What are they looking for as a tangible deliverable, right?
And then there's a lot of
I think that's
small wars going on within our country. And we can say like battles over election and voter ID. And then we have redistricting wars. And we have justice gaps and accountability. And then Miss Lillian Tripp, go ahead.
Hi everyone. My name is Lillian, and I just wanted to interject in regards to what is being said. So, I do see some issues in terms of what's going on with the voting. I think for millennials in particular, one of the issues of our generation is lack of going out and expressing our voices, such as our predecessors have done. And if the importance of voting has not been instilled into these generations, a lot of people, we feel like because of the outcomes that that some of you all have discussed already, like, well, what is the point? What is the purpose in voting? And I don't think people realize even the context of, for one, how hard our ancestors in particular fought for us to have the right to vote, and two, in terms of how laws are being made, like the redistricting, to affect the voices that are for the people that are voting. I don't think people realize the value and the significance in that. So I do think predecessors more so, they speak on it, and there's just not enough people. Like, I feel like certain groups of people of our generation of millennials are very conscious and aware and get out and vote and speak up, but not necessarily as many as it could be. We've seen the influence, we've seen the numbers in terms of when we do speak up, the power we hold and the results of the elections, how they can take place, because we for sure saw it, depending on where I was a year right before the vote, but we saw it in '08. in terms of those people fall in the earlier version of the millennials that were able to vote, and then we even see it, just in terms of the results of the local elections. Sorry, my child is in the background. In terms of the results of the local elections and the effects that can be had. And that's why, in fact, the administration is doing something about that. So I think more people speaking out in terms of our generation for sure, and getting people to vote and understanding the differences, because everyone wants to complain like, oh, this is happening or these laws are being changed, even from like the Save Act, changing your names, in general, women changing their names, but everybody wants to complain, but no one wants to do the work it takes to prevent this from happening by speaking up and voting, expressing our voices more, and explaining more the importance of voting.
I agree. Maya?
I feel like it's a problem of more the people who are speaking up, they don't have a collective idea on what they want. A lot of people are speaking up with different ideas of how to do things and the things they want to do in general. Like for Democrats, there's a lot of talking going on, but they're also split into fractions where there's more of a establishment side and a more progressive side. And even these two sides can't coexist in one party. And so ultimately, if unless like they combine, they're always going to get trampled over by a more consistent and together like group or formation.
Like the
That's kind of
Republicans?
what happened. Hmm?
Like the Republicans, how they're always uniform, even though
Yeah, what I think about the Republicans are even if they all don't agree on something, they're all going to vote for it anyway. But even now in recent times, they're even split on most issues, like especially with the war in Iran. You have a lot of people split. And so there are a lot of people talking, but they're not talking about the same issue or the same places where they want to be. And I feel like more younger people are way more progressive in their leaning, but more of like the people who are already there who have the power aren't with the same like standards or ideals that the younger generation are having. And so even if the younger generation does vote, they're voting for people who ideals don't align with theirs.
It's been said.
Okay. We have Miss TC as well after you, Miss Ella.
Okay, I was going to say it's been said that Democrats have to fall in love and Republicans fall in line. If we look at, so I understand what you just said is whose ideals align with yours, but can you get a governing majority? Because the first thing is you have to win the election before you can get your ideals in place.
Yeah.
I'm a
I thought
radical.
that I thought that everybody on the same team had the same ideals overall.
Not
But
necessarily.
and
No.
and that's what we're looking at. We just did, and that's what we just saw in our local election. I think that's what Maya was hinting towards.
Hmm. No, what
Um,
we saw a definite split, but if you took those two halves, would either half be able to accomplish the larger goal, which is what we have facing us in September, in November, what you would call the quote unquote unified front?
I wouldn't call
that's a
it
good question.
exactly unified.
Let's let Miss TC respond.
Okay. I want to try to bridge two thoughts. So the first thought is around your question about dystopia, and I often think about iRobot, which was set in the year 2035, as we are in the midst of all of these conversations about AI, and that is
That's a good
literally
one.
less than 10 years from now. So
I'm giving you flowers for that one. That was a good one.
yeah. So with that, and to think about how does that apply to sort of this idea of politics, this idea of collective voting, I don't think that we often operate from the same context. And so naturally, we don't reach the same conclusions. I think there are always going to be many ways to reach a single goal. We've always seen that. I think history shows us that, you know, even if there were a sect of people who were doing civil rights, there were other people who were focused on other things at the same time in many approaches. So I say that to say, I think we often miss the critical context that informs us in our decisions, so that we can, whoever needs to be the collective force moving in that single direction can do so, even if we don't all have the same idea of what the outcome is. We know that we all want a high quality of life, right? We have some clear shared ideas, and we can divide those by sort of political affiliation, if you will. And there are some things that we expect. I think progressives are really interested in sort of, I won't say mutual benefit, but a sharing of resources and a broader spectrum of people benefiting from collective interest. And when that happens, the idea that we could all vote that way is great, except for then we'll have 7 candidates and there's no one to say no, because this is going to make it so that there are so few votes for each of you, when we could just, to the point that was made earlier, get behind a single or a couple, depending on which office we're talking about, and advance that, and then hold them accountable. You know, you do so with expectations. Our slate will support, our this will support, but these are the things that we expect, or you will be a one-term candidate. You know, so.
I understand. That's what my train of thought is on a few things. So I have a few things that I wanted to say. So I think we're going through a test of tolerance. And I think, like you said, the civil rights before, people mentioned the civil rights. I think that was a test of our tolerance before, and we got tangibles, even if they've been diminished over the years or been trying to be attacked, and we fight for them over and over again. But I would like to state some things we see currently: ICE raids, including the unaliving of citizens that are not of our skin color, and then citizens calling it a question of interference or not by into ICE agencies' affairs. The before mentioned Iran war, unchecked budgets to foreign nations, invading other countries such as Venezuela and taking their leader, invading Greenland and trying to drill for oil. Also files. And then
Caleb, hold on one second. This is such good stuff. This is, I mean, go, go, go. But let's do a quick station ID, and then we're going to come right back.
Listen to The Voice, streaming online at WCHB1340.com. WCHB, AM 1340, Royal Oak, Detroit. The voice of the church.
To our listening audience, you are not hearing the same traditional voices. You have a group, actually a hodgepodge of 4 different generations on the call for the Courageous Hour this evening, moderated between some millennials, Linda, Dorma, and everybody else who's on the line. Please keep listening. But if you want to comment on things that you're hearing on today's show, the number to the studio, 313-837-1340, 313-837-1340. They are giving us the business, telling us exactly what they think. And these young folks are intelligent. They are well aware, and they have a great understanding of what they see and how they understand things. But our lens don't always align. But what we're hearing is the challenge to rally all of our votes into one place and space so that we can actually empower some change. Go ahead, Caleb.
All right. So I have I'm going to say 2 more things, and then three more things, and then we're going to go to answering Maya's question, and then we're going to go to Miss Tripp. So continue on the test of tolerance. When you're worn down, you're too tired to fight back. People are not a lot of people are not engaged, correct? All right. And then we have social issues are not an issue for everyone. The larger concern is their budget. And we noticed that with the Iran war and the support for it, and then the support for it after the strait was closed, and the increase on gas prices and inflation on other things showed us where people's focus really was. And then I will say, on our American side, citizen, consumer, like, our issues are going to be distractions and entertainment. So, such as sports betting, prediction markets, doom scrolling, and other social medias. So, those are the things that are keeping us distracted from these things that might be affecting those people who are not engaged. And then I believe I already answered Ms. Maya's question and Ms. Tripp.
Okay, so I heard you mention the doom scrolling, and what's interesting is too, like a lot of people with technology can be a beautiful thing, but it can also be a hindrance because a lot of people are not looking up their information. They're simply going to social media, and a lot of them are receiving false information. So I'll say that to that point. Another issue that I've noticed is that a lot of Maya had mentioned how, like millennials, we are informed, and this is true. I do believe we are informed. I think that it's a matter of the political divide, as Ms. Allen said, in terms of Democrats tend to go with, or they believe what they love. I forget exactly how she worded it, but they have to fall in love essentially, because think about what just happened with the previous presidential election a couple years back, right? So like how things were done and how the election went about, because let's, if we're being candid, like the Democrats knew Biden's health, his state of health, right? And we've even
Correct.
recently seen it in the
The
news.
bag
And
was the bag came out.
yeah, and it forced him to kind of resign. Whereas, and I love, come on, like I stand for it. However, personally, I feel like the world may not have been ready. You're dealing with racism, sexism, gender, like it was, that's a lot to combat. On top of, when you think about historically speaking, the world wasn't even ready for Hillary, which is what was a white woman. Now you have to prepare them essentially for like a black woman, right? So, but the way that she was announced as the candidacy, it didn't give, it was just like she's the candidate that's running for president. No one else had time to run. And I think a lot of people were frustrated. So now you have this, and I feel like people were frustrated with the old regimen of the democracy. So then they just voted how they voted, and we saw the results, even though Trump stated what he was going to do. And
Huh?
it was so interesting because everyone was like, oh my gosh, especially when it was affecting their family and some of their family members not being deported. And you're complaining about jobs, but who, let's look at it like, who are these people who are taking these jobs out on the farms, right? Who are these people who are taking these jobs, cleaning up these hotels, right? Um,
Who's going to do it now?
that part. So, I just think that we need to come together. We are more progressive and we see a lot of these injustices for sure. I agree with my wholeheartedly on that. I just think uh, like we have to come together and stand together because right, wrong, or indifferent with Trump, they can, his party, political party can think he's wrong all the way, but for whatever reason, they choose to stand beside that man. So that, I think the Democratic Party has to, for one, get into like a new regimen. I think that millennials and young like do a good job in terms of addressing more of the issues that exist today. I just think we need to come together with the, you know, more modern, progressive regimen collectively and stand on it.
I want to jump in and add a couple of things. Oh, Maya's hand is raised.
Okay, Maya, and
No,
then we'll see.
it's fine.
So what I wanted to respond to was Maya's question about a test of tolerance. I don't think it's a matter of test of political affiliation and tolerance. I think it's a matter of what citizens' understanding and what we accept based on our perception. So, for instance, and this one is sort of a made-up scenario. If we understand that, for instance, putting green dye into the ocean is illegal, right? This is just, again, a totally made up scenario. And then our government tests us by putting small drops of green dye into the ocean with whatever the justification is. And there are people who say, oh, well, I know it's illegal to do green dye, but it's only for this reason, or they find ways to justify themselves out of reacting to the inappropriate nature of it. Then that is the same whether they agree with that political or are affiliated politically with that administration or not. It's the matter of understanding what is acceptable and what is not, and how we respond. If you look at some other nations, those folks, they literally have gone as far as to assassinate their leaders because things were not happening. And I'm not suggesting that we do that. Be very clear, I'm not suggesting violence at all.
They tried
But I'm
that on
talking
January
about
6th, ma'am. They tried that already.
sort of.
No,
They,
they didn't.
they, they did. They just got woke up.
I can't.
No, they didn't.
My point is that what we see is that there's a when there are places where when citizens understand that that line has been pushed and the choices that have been made by their government leaders have been made and are outside of the parameters of what's acceptable, we see very clear response, such that sometimes it makes international news. Again, what we do, what choices we make, that's up to us, but there is a collective apathy regardless of political affiliation. And I don't mean that we don't care. I mean that we don't respond in any way that would prevent it from happening again.
Maya, do you have anything, or are you done?
I wanted to touch on social media and also, I guess, coming together as a side.
Okay.
So social media, I know a lot of people get misinformation through social media, but it also like fuels discourse between both sides where you're not where there's discourse happening, but it's about things that aren't important at all to anyone.
Distraction?
But also it also
Distraction?
Yeah. But also this also comes from traditional like news sources too. Fox, CNN, traditional news sources also spread misinformation, lies, and also propaganda against opposing groups. So even that's not safe. So I wouldn't call it a social media problem. It's more of a problem of how discourse and politics are discussed in our society. But also on the issue of tolerating, I more so come from like the cultural wars side of things, to where it's like both sides feel like they're tolerated too much. Like in 2016, I hear a lot of people say, "Oh, they because we had our black president, they had to get Trump in. They tolerated the black president. Now we have to tolerate their nominee." And this is seen a lot, like a lot of the issues, like with a lot of the social issues, are from people feeling like we've tolerated these progressive ideals too much. But progressives always also feels that now. Like, how long are we gonna have to tolerate more conservative leading space, right? And you saw this in our most recent like Senate election, well, primaries, where Haley Stevens, she was favored by most Democrats to win the primaries because she's more of the standard, but also she didn't win because how long are we going to have to tolerate another establishment Democrat who supports another one who supports Israel, took $30 million from Israel, and loves data centers? We're tired of tolerating that, of tolerating these ideals that we don't agree with, and that's why we have more like you see Mamdani Abdul LCE.
Can you tell me what she was running for?
She was running for the
No, not
I'm
which
talking about
office. What were her policies?
she they had a lot of similar policy. Like she didn't like ICE. They both ran on the to lower groceries and housing. But the big part of where people separated, Abdullah Salih Al Sayed, he is very much pro Medicare and stuff. And the big factor for most people on the spaces I talk to are really the Israel stance and her position on data centers, which is a growing issue among like every basis, Republican and Democrats. No one likes data centers except the politicians that we are voting for. And so, yeah, it's just a lot of how we have to tolerate stuff from the politicians, from even the politicians we're voting for. So how long is that going to go? How far should we take that? How
I
far should we take our tolerance to support one conglomerate who also is not supporting our interest, right?
I hear you. Do we have anything from Sydney or maybe Miss Desiree?
So I did join late, but from what I've heard, this sounds like a very engaging conversation. I want to reflect on one note that I'm hearing about the use of social media. I see it as a tool, however way you look at it. And I also think that similar to how we received um, too many letters in the mail and postcards, and we see the signage, the propaganda has always existed and even still does. I think the biggest challenge we're going to have as a country, as a nation, as a generation, and even specifically not as much as, maybe the millennial generations, but those that come after us, is being able to do two things. To separate what we see on social media um, from what we feel. And then the second is going to be to decipher what is actually true and real and what is not. And that goes across the board. Obviously the use of, we mentioned data centers, the use of AI, it's not going anywhere but further. And what I appreciate about the power of social media, I was having a conversation and this was just about how intergenerations use the platforms. My mother loves to get news articles and email them to me. But by the time she's seen it on the news, then read the article and then sent it to me, I heard about it 3 days before. And so we were talking about, how powerful it is to get information quickly, but we still need to be able to decipher what is true, what is real, and where is it coming from. And so then we have to then go check that against our own personal beliefs, our values, the things that we want to see in this world, in this country, and to leverage that. So just because a politician or a candidate has dope social reels, right? Like that's engaging, doesn't mean that when they actually get down to work that they're going to be able to represent us and our beliefs and needs well. But it does, it is a necessary evil now. And what we're beginning to see in some of these campaigns. So I have a background in marketing and a background in policy and government affairs. We're beginning to see how powerful a tool, a platform actually is to move people to a decision, regardless if they actually know much about you or not. It's scary, but it's true. And so if we actually realize the average voting age could change dramatically if we leverage social media to advocate for more and earlier voting, I think we can realize that we have more power than we even imagine as a people. What you'll equally see is the same people funding the many candidates with progressive ideas. There's equally amount of people who are funding those very conservative, and it's going to be a money game, and it always has been. So it's just really interesting to see. I do challenge people to turn off social though. And when there's an opportunity to meet a candidate in person, talk to them. No matter what we see, when we engage with the people who are running for our office, for our votes, you'll be able to determine better when you're able to connect within your community groups, within whatever. I just encourage people to come out. to their events or to places you know that they may be, or multiple candidates, to make an informed decision and make that call, that judgment call for yourself after you've then done some research and talked to them, because it is that serious. And the last note I'll add, I work at the Charles Wright Museum, and we just, as of this last week, opened a new exhibit. It's all about voting from an educational lens, though. So what is the Electoral College? Who is actually voting for us? And I think sometimes we got to go back to the basics, because we assume people know and we remember from when we were in school, right? And but it's easy to kind of be misguided if you actually just don't know. And so our job is really simple, just to inform. And so I would encourage everybody to think about all the things I just I just dropped, but also what can we do to make sure we're making more informed decisions?
Miss Aya, would you like to speak on the collective?
Absolutely. So for context, I was raised in what I would consider to be collective groups, whether it was through, faith or school or all these things. I think collective communalism was a core value in those spaces. And so I hear a lot from people, oh, vote for what works for you, do this what works for you. We all have to do what works for me. And yes, except for people will pick one issue, right? And then say, oh, well, that works for me, as if the other issues are not somehow a part of that same, those other issues or those other things that we're voting on are not somehow impacted by those choices because you picked one thing that worked for you and you latched onto that. But we don't exist in the world as exclusively as individuals. We belong to collectives, regardless of what you're thinking, whether it's your family, whether it's your neighborhood, your city, your nation, your demographic identity. All of those things are collectives. And we suffer when we choose to vote exclusively for us. Or for, when I say us, I mean as a single individual, right? I think about, just to give some context, the idea of the Montgomery bus boycotts, right? That was a decision that I'm sure was very inconvenient for the people that had to walk, carpool, etc. And it changed their lives in terms of their normal day-to-day activity. But they did it because it was for the collective. And so I think we just really need to get a handle on what's important, because sometimes it's that individual's decision. I'm not discounting that there are critical things that we must be conscious of for ourselves. However, at the expense of the collective is where I question people's judgment.
Do you have a place that you would recommend us go to as a collective place?
I'm going to ditto the right. I think as if we're talking about sort of context, I think libraries, museums can provide some sort of softer context, some intellectual context. I think going to public spaces and talking to people is a great way to understand. I'm really cautious to suggest outside of that. I think there are a lot of places where we can get civic and political education. I would also encourage those, not to change how people vote, but so that we can be really clear on what the implications are of voting or not. To the point of the Electoral College, knowing that this election we're in right now and the people that we choose for this election here and all across the nation are the people who will make the decisions the next time there's a presidential election, because they're the Electoral College. We all go to the polls and we vote, and that's great and lovely. But the Electoral College makes that decision. And so our decisions, are wonderful to broadcast, but at the end of the day, those votes are what changes the tide or solidifies whatever decision has been expressed. And so we just really need to be a little more conscious and informed. I love that you put League of Women Voters. Yeah.
How you guys doing?
We're fine.
Well. How are you?
This is Keith Williams.
Hi, Keith.
How you doing? I'm chairman of the Michigan Democratic Party Black Caucus.
Mm-hmm.
And I got the tail end of the conversation. On Saturday, I'm holding a thing at my building called Black Leaders to talk about the future of the blacks in politics and the democratic politics. We all over the map. We need to come to find something how we close the wealth gap, but more importantly, get a better understanding how this political process works. I've been doing it now. I've been elected to office. My wife is the Wayne County clerk, and I've been deep into it from a reparation standpoint, from a national standpoint. I get it, but one thing we have to do, we just got to make sure we're never going to be all on the same page, but somehow we got to find a direction that's going to close some of these gaps in our political process. I don't care about in those other groups out there. I just care about Black people, and that's my take on things. But you can come to this thing. So it's Saturday from 2 to 4, and we're gonna have some people there. And we're gonna talk because this election is important right now. The governor, the Senate, and all the top of the ticket. And it's we can philosophize our way through this, but the reality is those folks affect our lives.
Mr. Williams, do you have the address?
Yeah, 12901 Auburn Street. I didn't mean to jump in like this. 12901 Auburn Street, Detroit, Michigan, 48223.
And the time again?
From 2 to 4 o'clock.
All right. And Ms. Desiree said the League of Women Voters has helpful events and programs that will educate and inform. Ms. Dorma Magruder says ballot-builder.com will give you objective information on candidates and their position on issues.
Caleb, was there someone else who was going to speak? I think you had somebody else who was in the queue, Miss Sydney, I think.
Miss Sydney, are you ready?
Hi, yes. I'm sorry. It's just this is a little overwhelming for me. It was so many great points made. I just was taking some notes just to kind of go back on. One thing I really loved is what Desiree said is saying, going back to the basics, because I feel like that kind of is an issue. A lot of the people we are voting for, I feel like people don't know. They just look for like the familiar name or what they heard their friend is, who they heard their friend or someone close to them is voting for. But we really aren't going and trying to meet these candidates when they have these coffee chats and, these opportunities to get to know them. And then there's also, like she said, like just really the basics of like economics and things like that, knowing and understanding how the electoral college works and knowing how, bills become laws and, just little things like that. I think that is kind of what's missing, at least from, I feel like the younger generation and even me, like I'm a younger millennial, and I think sometimes we are missing that. Um, and then also the piece of, I can't remember who said about being an individualistic kind of society versus collective. I think that's just like a across the board issue, not even just in politics, but just in general. Like work with youth in schools, and it's very much individualistic and what is good for them instead of what is good for all of us.
This is awesome, Caleb. I think you were muted, Caleb. We got like 4 minutes. We got less than 4 minutes. Someone else just jumped in, so let's hear from whoever.
What I'm going to say is this conversation is not going to end today. We would like for you to put on your calendars to come back next Wednesday at the same time with your additional points. But what I would challenge you to do is to come up with solutions on how we bridge these gaps between what you see and what are some of the issues affecting you personally and your group as a collective, and how can they best be addressed.
Alondra Hall has her hand up.
Yep.
Okay.
Ms. Hall?
Okay, hi. I just wanted to kind of go back on what everyone is saying, and I know Miss Linda Allen just spoke about that gap or that missing piece. I know earlier Lillian had spoke on, when we were younger millennials or when we were like fresh getting started into the voting era, we had we had so much coverage over like the hip hop community, not social media, but like during TV, like that issue or that go out and vote was really, really pushed on us. I feel like now with our time, even with the generation up under us, they're not getting that same get out and vote. It's important to vote, get your voice heard. They're not getting that same influence that we've had. I know we've all speaking about social media, they may put candidates up there on our social media pages as we're scrolling, but they're not really saying, get out and vote. This person is doing this. This person is who. This person is for you. Go out and vote. So I feel like the generation up under us, they don't have that same influence that we've had. I know with the gen above us, they voting was more important to them and it was passed on to us. But I don't feel like as millennials, we're really passing that on or passing that down to the generation up under us. I think that's a big problem with us. And I think that that's something we can work on to fix.
Miss Ellen gave us homework. It was how to bridge gaps. Do you have any recommendations on how us millennials can bridge the gaps to the generations that are after us?
That's for next week. That's for next week.
But that's your goal. That's
my
next
goal.
week. It's not mine.
Okay. I guess
that's next week.
Can I say something?
Go ahead, Keith.
Real quick. There's a schism right now in the process of the millennials in my generation. And we need to talk about this because, the young folks are going to certain different directions and the older folks are set in their ways. So how do we bridge that gap to get you guys included? And so I'm offering up anything that you guys need from a political perspective because I'm with the Democratic Party and I can get access to anything I need. But more importantly, the Michigan Democratic Party Black Caucus is the hottest thing in black politics in the state of Michigan. And so I'm just saying, today, Linda tell you right, next week I'll come on earlier. But next to Saturday, if you want to get a taste of something, just come by my building. We're going to have a little food and stuff like that. But we're going to talk about this because if we're not working together, we're still going to be chasing somebody else's politics.
Are you saying we should pick our own candidates?
You can't because, you can run your candidates, but you got to get them in the system to even get acknowledged. Because in this game, it's about money and know-how and friendships and stuff.
I'm going to leave you on a note. We had someone win the presidency with no money. So I don't know if that's true. And then we had somebody spend a lot of money and lost the presidency, more than everybody's ever spent. So we might need to just collectively get our power together and create a different strategy that doesn't involve.
We're about to be out of time. What I'm hoping is that this was so engaging and so powerful. I've not seen it in a long time. Ladies, gentlemen, please come back next week. Same time, same place. Let's carry on this discussion. Linda gave you homework. But I also want to know about your own personal social issues that you want to see governmental solutions or communal solutions. To the listening audience, you've been listening live to the Courageous Hour. We've come to the end. Please come back next week. God willing, and the creek don't rise, we'll see you again.
Bye-bye.
Put your faith into action.
Bye, everybody.
They need your help.
Thanks, everyone.
They need donations. Send your donation to Courageous Incorporated, 12925 Auburn Street, Detroit, Michigan, 48223.